welcome to the Woodbury Zoning Board of Appeals. Please rise for the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is the Woodbury Zoning Board of Appeals. We meet every second Wednesday of the month. Our next meeting will be in September. I wrote it down, September 11th, here at Village Hall. Our board members are Mr. Joseph, to your far right, Mr. Joseph DiVenuto, Mr. Gary Kestenbaum, Mr. Kevin Abrams, Mr. Craig Brady. To your far left is our recording secretary, Jessica McLennan, our counsel, Mr. Robert Dickover, and I'm Karen Unger, the chairperson. We will be going into executive session for some advice from our attorney, legal advice. So if you want to hang around, or you can go home. See you later.
You do that outside. TV, yeah. Oh, yeah, no.
No, they aren't as bad as your other two systems.
that under new business?
Thank you for your patience. Has everyone read the minutes from last month, from July 10th? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as read?
I'll make a motion.
As written, I'm sorry. Second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, new business. We have a letter from the building inspector that a violation was issued for an applicant who a few months ago applied for a fence. He was supposed to put up a white fence. He went to get to the building inspector. The building inspector said, sure, you can put a tan insert in. He issued a building permit for the tan insert. So the applicant put the tan insert in. A neighbor complained. He was issued a violation. There was a stop work order, and he now needs to go to court. What we're willing to do, what we would like to do is make a motion to rehear this application and possibly modify the decision. Is there any discussion before we make a motion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we rehear this application for the modification.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I need to poll individually?
Roll call.
Okay. Joe, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so there will be a rehearing, which means there will be a new application made for the fence. New notices will go out. It'll be a new public hearing. Everybody can come and give their opinion or whatever, and I'm sure the building department will let you know how that's going. Does the applicant need to do anything at this point?
And that should be September when, 11th?
That should be September 11th, unless Gary... is that Is that okay? Okay. So that'll be in Mr. Thomas Berger's hands at this point. Okay, so next month you can come back and we will reconsider the beige insert in the fence.
No.
No, I don't think so.
rehearing.
Not on a no, not on a This is just on our motion to rehear and modify the decision.
Should the applicant
But if you
be
do,
advised
if you
to
do go to
appeal?
court next week, I would just explain to the judge that, if you go to court next week, I would explain to the judge that this is being reheard on September 11th and ask them to postpone that. Okay?
Perhaps Gary could do something with that. Can Gary do something with the appeal? With the not with the appeal, with the...
The judges are good.
Okay, that's just basically what Kevin said. All right? All right, thank you. Okay.
Good night.
We have a bit of a change in the agenda. Shops at Woodbury will not be on the agenda tonight. They've requested a postponement till next...
Rushmore.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. We're not up that far. Yes, I'm sorry. The Pulver decision from last month. We have a draft decision. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, this is a Pulver Rushmore Estate Winery review decision for decision to permit the proposed use of a farm winery, whereas pursuant to Section 310-39.1B, winery access must be to New York State Route 32, and applicant proposes access through Quaker Road, a village road, and Ice House Road, a private road. Property is located at 14 Castleton Drive, Highland Mills, 202, 170, and 79, section block and lot numbers. If many pages of facts and findings, the decision is as follows. In employing the balancing test set forth in Village Law, Section 7-712B and C, the board hereby grants the variance as requested upon the following conditions. 1, This approval is not granted in a vacuum, but is rather one of two independent yet interconnected discretionary approvals, the other being within the jurisdiction of the Village Planning Board on site plan and special permit approval for the farm winery. As such, this grant of variance is conditioned upon approval of the proposed site plan and special permit by the Village Planning Board. This approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals is intended to do no more than vary the specified strict limitation provision of the code in its requirement that the farm winery have access to New York State Route 32. It is not intended to authorize the use of the premises as a farm winery, nor construction of a particular building, nor approve the footprint, size, volume, or style thereof. The Planning Board remains possessed of all its power and authority to review, limit, request modifications to, and to ultimately approve, absolutely or conditionally, any application in reference to this project as may come before it. Should the Planning Board require changes in the size, location, or configuration from what is shown on the plans before the Zoning Board of Appeals that require greater or different variances, the applicant must return to the Zoning Board of Appeals for further review and approval. This application is, number 2, this application is tied to a specific application for site plan approval pending before the Planning Board. Therefore, this approval is conditioned upon the applicant diligently pursuing his application before that board. Should the applicant not have obtained approval from that board within 2 years from the date of this decision, he must request an extension of this approval from this board. A failure to obtain an approval from the Planning Board or an extension of this grant of variance from this board shall result without further action in a lapsing of this approval 2 years from the date of this decision. Number 3. This variance is specifically granted subject to and conditioned upon the applicant meeting the following conditions in the development of his property for the proposed farm winery. These conditions are to be met and maintained during the use and operation of the farm winery, and in the event these conditions no longer exist, this variance hereby granted shall become without further notice null and void. The conditions are as follows. A. With respect to the improvement of Ice House Road, it is to be constructed as a 2-lane, macadam-surfaced, 24-foot wide driveway, graded horizontally and vertically to meet current village specifications for a private street or roadway, together with footpaths or sidewalks installed in the residential portion of Ice House Road to a design acceptable to the Village Planning Board in the context of the site plan approval process. B. With respect to the design of Ice House Road, it is to be designed for suitable access by emergency vehicles, including firefighting apparatus and ambulance. The intersection of Ice House Road at Quaker Road is to be signed with a New York State stop sign, and suitable site distances are to be maintained for traffic exiting onto Quaker Road. C. With respect to the use by others of Ice House Road, though owned by the applicant, legal access and egress to the 6 properties currently having access via Ice House Road to Quaker Road is to be continued and memorialized by recorded easement suitable to counsel for the Zoning Board. D. The applicant shall file a declaration of covenants binding the owner of the subject premises to perpetually maintain Ice House Road to village private street standards and to grant enforcement authority to the village and any of the 6 property owners using Ice House Road for access and egress. E. The applicant shall apply to the Village Board and New York State DOT, if applicable, for MUTCD. I forgot what it stands for. Yeah. Thank you. Traffic signage at the intersection of Ice House Road, Quaker Road and Evans Drive, Quaker Road, Route 32, Evans Drive, and Route 32, and install and maintain such signage as a condition to this variance. As part of the applicant's site plan, letter F, as part of the applicant's site plan application, he shall propose to realign the intersection of Quaker Road and New York State Route 32 so as to create a T intersection. The proposal shall be pursued diligently with the Planning Board, Village Board, and State DOT. If approved by all, the realignment shall be completed as a condition to this variance as approved. G. As part of this applicant's site plan, he shall design and present a plan for directional signage both on and off premises so as to direct the volume of anticipated traffic from Ice House Road / Quaker Road intersection directly to the Quaker Road / New York State Route 32 intersection so as to avoid to the maximum extent possible traffic along Evans Drive. H. as a condition of this variance and to be imposed as a condition to any subsequent site plan approval, the applicant shall not allow large passenger-style buses or tractor-hauled trailers, 18-wheel vehicles, to access the premises via Ice House Road. I, the Zoning Board of Appeals recommends to the Village Planning Board that if the applicant's site plan for a farm winery is to be approved, that the Planning Board make a recommendation to the Village Board of Trustees to consider designating Evans Drive as a one-way road. J, if the applicant's site plan for a farm winery is approved by the Village Planning Board, all information disseminated by the applicant related to directions to the winery and/or traffic into or out of the winery shall refer only to access and egress via the Quaker Road/Route 32 intersection and shall not mention in any form or fashion access via Evans Drive. Do I have a motion to accept this decision as written?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Joe, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Kevin?
No.
Craig?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So the decision is acceptance of this, the vote is decision as accepted, so the access is approved. Now we have some changes to the agenda. Okay, Shops at Woodbury has requested a postponement till next month.
I'll make a motion to extend the public hearing to September 11th.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
So Shops at Woodbury should be on the agenda next month. Also, the next change is we're going to take letter D, cruise, and move that to the first item on the agenda. Is the cruise applicant here? Okay.
Need to turn on that mic for her.
Yeah. Or the regular. It's got a switch on the top. It's the easy one.
Turn that on so we can hear you.
Okay, while we're working on that microphone, this is a public hearing for a special permit to permit the continued use of a second dwelling unit for an individual family member, mother-daughter, pursuant to Section 310-35 of the Village Code. Said property is located in the R1A zoning district at 39 Pleasant Drive in Highland Mills and is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 211, Block 1, Lot 53. And I assume you are the applicant. Would you state your name for the record, please? Kimberly Cruz?
What was that?
Kimberly Cruz.
Okay. Are you a new owner of the house?
I am. I purchased in April of 2019.
Okay. And I see that you said that the reason that you need this is that your mother visits on the weekends. How long does she stay?
She sometimes comes from Friday to Sunday on the weekends.
But she has a home somewhere else?
Well, she lives in the city.
She lives in, okay. I don't know about visits. I know we're not supposed to draw that delineation, make that delineation between visitors and dwellers.
Well, she wants her own space, is that what you're...
Exactly, and she can't really walk up because it's a bi-level ranch, so she can't go up the steps. So when she stays down there, she's down there pretty much the whole time. So she cooks for herself and things like that downstairs.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, Ms. Cruz, so this was a pre-existing mother-daughter
Yes.
dwelling?
Yes.
It is my understanding, and I did look at 310.2 and 310.35 on this, fellow board members, that it is a dwelling. It is not like a room for a visit kind of thing. I don't believe it's applicable to continue it on as a dwelling unit. I don't know if it would pass the inspection, on the yearly inspection, when the building inspector goes in to check them in a yearly fashion on that.
Well, I think what the building inspector checks is, one, if it's a family member, and it's the family member that's listed because it can't be rented. And two, if the appliances are there. If it's just used,
I'm just saying, it is supposed to be a residence for a person who lives there 7 days a week or, most of the time, not like weekends.
necessarily. There's no dates that you have to live into a two-family, mother-daughter house.
Well, either you live there, Kevin, or you visit there. It's not the same thing.
Well, when she's there, she's living there.
Not really. It's not a dwelling, it's a visitation.
Am I allowed to speak, or?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, well, as I mentioned, when my mom goes there, she does cook for herself, and she stays downstairs because she just doesn't have the capacity to go upstairs in the bi-level, in the upstairs level. So she does use the kitchen downstairs. It is a full kitchen, and it pretty much is a full apartment downstairs.
And, me personally, I don't care how many days she stays there a year. She wants it to be her space. They're asking for a mother-daughter application, which is already there. I mean, why do we sit here telling them how many days they have to live there?
No, we're not. Joe just asked a question.
I know.
Anybody else have any comments on the board?
That's me.
Do you have any more comments before I ask for the public? I mean, you can come back up after the public speaks.
No other comments.
All righty, thank you. Is there anyone in the first row wishes to speak to this application? Second row? Third row? Anyone in the seating by the windows? No? Do I have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the public hearing is closed. We'll make a decision at the end of this meeting. You're welcome to stay, or you can call the building department in the morning. Okay. Next on the agenda is Reineke Veit, continuation of a public hearing for an area variance to permit the construction of a single-family dwelling on a pre-existing lot having no frontage on a public roadway or suitable roadway improved to the satisfaction of the highway superintendent. Said property is located between 97 and 101 Smith Clove Road in the R2A zoning district, is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 218, Block 2, Lots 88, Lot 88. Is the applicant here? Please state your name for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Kimball. I'm here on behalf of the applicants and Representative Kimball. I do want to just make a comment to address an issue that was raised at the last appearance. Clarify the circumstances and facts surrounding the request. One of the elements that may not be clear from our application is that if you look on the map that we've supplied, there is two pieces of property that are owned by the applicant. There is where the proposed dwelling will be placed, and there is a piece of property that actually fronts on Smith Clove Road. And that's a small sliver of property that I believe is tax map 89, where the existing driveway already exists. And that driveway is being utilized by two dwellings already. The dwelling on which the proposed easement will cross that land, and then a dwelling in front of that. So this will be connecting the two parcels owned by the applicant. The parcel in between those two parcels is owned by Mr. Veit, the applicant's ex-husband, and part of their divorce agreement requires him to grant this easement.
Is that legal? Can he do that?
I need a map.
Seeking shuffle.
Here's Smith Clove Road. Sure, absolutely.
Counselor, is this on? Nope.
Would you like me to approach?
Yeah, we'll try and do it from here. I'm going to walk you through this again. I'm now looking at a map, Town of Woodbury, Section 18, Block 1, Lot 88, called a plot plan prepared for tax lot 18-288. Is that an accurate representation of the properties that you're asking us to consider?
That is,
The lot in question that seeks the variance is at the far right-hand side of that property with a proposed dwelling noted next to it?
that is correct.
Who is the current owner of that lot?
That's Miss Vite,
And she's the applicant.
that's correct.
This map that I'm looking at shows a tax lot number 85.231 to the left of it. Who is the owner of that lot?
That's Mr. Vite.
And they are no longer married?
They're no longer married.
And he and the applicant are no longer joint owners of that property, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's solely owned by Mr. Vite.
That's correct.
The map I'm looking at also has, I'm going to say, two sections that have on them driveways. Let's start with the one furthest to the left, coming in off of Smith Clove Road. It's called Tax Lot 89. Who is the current owner of that property?
That's Miss Vite,
The applicant?
the applicant.
Continuing, I'll say down the driveway or along the driveway, left to right, there is another piece of property shown also with a proposed driveway on it, demarcated with a solid line on the left-hand side and then a dashed line. And it's labeled proposed 30-foot wide easement for ingress, egress, and utilities from tax lot 85.231 to tax lot 88. You see that parcel that I'm referring to?
Yes, and I think that we're talking clear enough. Just to be clear, there's a section of the existing gravel driveway on tax lot 89 that extends in this drawing into tax lot 85.230.231. That exists today and existed in 2005 at the time that this map was drawn. Then there is a dotted area, which is the proposed easement with a proposed driveway extending to the proposed dwelling. Those do not exist as of today. Our request is that you grant the ability to place that proposed dwelling in, that then the easement will be finalized. It is required in the divorce decree that Mr. Vite will agree to that easement. Then once it's finalized, placing in the driveway. But essentially, just to clarify the issue, you're taking what is already an existing driveway that is owned by the applicant and extending it to the new proposed dwelling. All you're going to be doing, in essence, is allowing for a little bit of extra traffic for a single home dwelling in that area. The house itself, the lot, does not change in any way the nature of the neighborhood. In fact, it is consistent with the sizes. If you look at it, other than Mr. Vite's house, which is a little bit larger, but the homes in the neighborhood, other than that, especially the ones on Smith Clove Road, are similar, actually smaller lot sizes. This driveway is already being utilized by one of those homes who was granted access before the 1950s to utilize the driveway that currently exists.
And just so the record's clear, the proposed 30-foot wide easement that shows up on this map is on the land currently owned by Mr. Vite.
That's correct.
So we're clear, the lot that is owned by the applicant with the proposed dwelling shown upon it, is that section 18, block 1, lot 88?
Yes.
Counselor, the issue I think that the board has here is, I'm sure you're familiar with the provisions of Village Law 7-736.
I am actually not as familiar as my partner, Mr. Reinecke, is, so if you want to.
All right, well, let me tell you what our issue is, and you can decide how you and Mr. Reinecke might want to deal with it.
Okay.
The issue is one of formal status. 7-736 of the village law requires that, or states that no permits shall be issued for a structure which does not have access to a street shown upon the official map of the village or an approved subdivision map by the planning board, or a street that shows upon an ancient map. That would be one that was adopted prior to the adoption of village, or in this case, town zoning ordinance or subdivision rules and regulations.
That's the ordinance 310-8.
Yeah. So the issue here is, in the absence of access, which by that statute in case law is defined to mean frontage, no permits shall be issued. Within the further confines of 7-736, you will find some relief provisions granting to a zoning board the ability to make exception and/or variances to 7-736. However, there does not appear to be relief available when the formal status of the road does not exist. The relief provisions are for improving the access for purposes of emergency services and adequate access for emergency services. The board has received letters from the DPW as well as from, I believe, the fire department and emergency services indicating that they do not have a problem with your application and that may well satisfy the suitable improvement provisions of 7-736, but it does not answer the question about formal status. And at this point, that is the board's stumbling block with this application. I think if you're seeking this relief, you'll need to address that point.
And that's 7-736?
Yes.
And it's formal status. Now, if I can just take a little bit more of your time. It's your position that because the road doesn't exist now, there can't be relief because there is no status to make the application.
The means of access that you were proposing is via right-of-way. Right-of-way does not meet the formal status provisions of 7-736 unless you can find an old map that shows this driveway as being a street or a subdivision map that shows it as being a street.
But isn't that the very nature of the variance that we're requesting, is to avoid that issue by granting access to the road frontage on Smith Clove Road?
The case law indicates that the variance relief is available for the suitable improvement. 7-736 has two components. The first one is that the street must have formal status, and secondly, it must be suitably improved, typically to village street requirements. You have both problems here. But the first one, in the absence of formal status, the case law indicates that the board does not have the authority to grant the relief that you're seeking.
Can I ask a question? I agree with what you've said so far, but I was under the impression that if you couldn't meet the formal status and therefore couldn't suitably improve or possibly could, you still had some recourse. You could ask for an exception if the road was not related, if the house was not related to the road, or you could ask for an area variance. Now, I don't think you could say that the house and the road are not related because you need that road to get in and out. So I thought that they could then seek an area variance
You're
with a five-prong, the 5 questions.
right, but the area variance would go to the suitable improvement condition,
But not the formal
but
status.
not the formal status.
So what does he have to do?
They need to demonstrate that this proposed right-of-way has formal status.
And if they can't?
The board is without authority to grant the relief they're requesting. That's my opinion. Again, I'm asking.
Can't you do the Can't you do a, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can we define formal status? What do you mean by that?
Formal status is achieved by 3 methods. I'm going to paraphrase them because the language is really difficult, but it's pretty simple stuff. Number 1, if the proposed access appears on a map filed in the county clerk's office and shows it as a street, and that would be a map adopted prior to the villages/towns adoption of subdivision rule and regulation. So we call that the ancient map exception. The second one is that the proposed access appears on a approved subdivision map adopted by the planning board under then or now current subdivision regulations. So that would be a street shown on a subdivision map. And the third one is a street that appears on the official map of the village. And my understanding is that the village of Woodbury has never adopted a official village map, and so that particular avenue does not appear to be available. So it's either on an ancient map or it's on a subdivision map.
What I would propose then is that we keep the public hearing open for an opportunity for my office to prepare a memorandum for Mr. Dickover to review, and for, of course, the board to review. And maybe that we can address some of those issues and find a way around the problem that you raised.
It would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, the board's inclined.
Does the board have any questions before we open it to the public? Is there anyone in the second row wishes to speak to this application? Third row? Anyone along the windows? Do I have a motion to continue this public hearing till next month so that the Reineke applicants can get more information? And
I'll make that
possibly-
motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we will see you next month. And
For my records, would it be more convenient for us to have the memorandum to Mr. Dickover a week before, or
ASAP?
ASAP? However you want to have it done.
Yeah, don't submit it to me, or you can copy it to me, but file it with the building department.
Okay, file with the building department as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. The next public hearing is Schwimmer, continuation of public hearing for an area variance to permit the installation of an 8-foot-high solid pool curtain around an existing in-ground swimming pool, whereas pursuant to Section 146-5A and 146-B, a maximum height of 6 feet is permitted and a fence made of cloth or canvas is prohibited. Said property is located in the R2A zoning district at 21 Vanderbilt Drive in Highland Mills, and is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 245, Block 1, Lot 102. Is Mr. Schwimmer here? Yes, sir. So last month when you came before us, you gave us some information on the tennis mesh cloth that you called it. And we had some people from Highland Lake Estates, which is where your home is located, correct? And there was some discussion as far as what the homeowners association allowed there. And they did give us copies of everything. And basically what it says is that before you do anything on your property, you need to submit plans and specifications and any changes that you make to the property, front, rear, side, top, bottom, whatever, on the exterior of your home. And they have 60 days to approve or disapprove. And I'm imagining you didn't do that because they seemed upset with what you had. So did you submit any plans to the HOA? Could you turn on your mic so oh, it's on? Could you pick it up then and
Okay, I did
yeah, why don't you take it out of the holder and that'd probably make it easier.
okay, I did not consult with them or file an application.
Jessica, can you hear that?
I did not seek any application because from my understanding, reading the bylaws of the HOA, it's mentioned that they have jurisdiction and a say over the property from the front of my property to the shutters of my window, not any.
I never found that in there.
Okay,
I-
so it says regarding fences. And that was told to me by the president of the HOA. He approached me on a different matter, and he informed me verbally also, telling me, like, do you know that you cannot have anything in front of your home? And at that time, we had a discussion. He explained that the HOA governs from the front of the property line to the shutters of my house.
Well-
Not in the backyard. I mean, nothing to do with the backyard, unless you have seen it firsthand and you see that they have a jurisdiction over a fence in the back of my house.
Well, the bottom line is that regardless or irregardless of what the HOA has printed or told you or whatever, it's a matter between you and the HOA. That's a private matter. So really what we're dealing with here is the Village of Woodbury zoning code. So that's what we're going to deal with this evening.
Correct.
Can you tell me how you arrived at 8 foot as the height that you need?
It turns out because my pool is lower with 2 feet from the surrounding terrain, if I would, let's say, erect my pool outside, my gate or my cloth fence outside of my fence, then I would need maybe 6 feet will be suffice. But since I'm putting it more inside, just so that it's more pleasing to anyone, so that you don't have anything visible from the outside, because I do have a metal fence plus like 6 foot high shrub grasses that grow to 6 feet high. I'm placing it inside of my pool, and because it's lower than the outside, if by doing 6 feet I don't have any coverage, so I'm seeking for that variance of placing it 8 foot high inside of my pool area, which equals almost the 6 feet from the outside, because we have 2 levels.
So you're talking on the right, you have
On
all
the
the
right.
grasses, I saw that.
The terrain right outside the gate is higher with 2 feet than inside of my
So
pool.
you're saying basically the fence area is higher than the pool area and then it goes down? Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying that the pool area is higher?
From after my existing fence around my pool, which is made out of like just wrought iron, there's a drop. Actually, there's planters where it's still on the same level, then it drops 2 feet down. So 6 feet inside does not give me anything, which is, I'm sorry, when I have 8 feet inside, it equals to the 6 feet outside. But since I wanted to please my neighbors that I don't have to deal with my particular black, what do I call it, mesh fence, I'm placing it inside. And because it's lower, because the ground over there is lower with 2 feet, by putting it at 8 feet level, it will reach the 6 feet level of outside what the Woodbury Code allows. And plus, I was asking for just a temporary thing. It's not a structure. It's something that is removed after the season, which is in 3 weeks from now. It's just that they were using the arm of the building department, because obviously nobody addressed me with any formal paperwork saying, hey, please put in an application. They are using the building department as a stick to basically try to get enforcement for something that I don't think they had anything in the back of my property,
But-
unless you guys saw something.
But those type of tarps, they're not allowed, are they?
It's not a tarp. It's
Wow,
something that blows-
whatever it is. I mean, I drove up there and I come down a little hill and I could see it. It's not that attractive in that kind of development. I'll be honest.
It's basically a temporary fence, right?
There is,
Another 3 weeks.
but there's alternatives that you have
So the alternatives are the grasses, which are growing to 6 feet, not yet enough high. So somebody gave me a recommendation to put Miracle Grow, which
Well, no, there's another alternative. We had the same situation, and what they did was they went out and bought a couple umbrellas.
talking here a span of like
And
30,
then
40 feet.
When you open up that umbrella, it covers 15 feet, even 20 feet. And that's how he solved his problem.
Besides,
The pro, oh, go
it's a
ahead.
good suggestion, and I might see if it can
And
be
I
feasible.
think the umbrellas, I don't know whether the umbrellas are governed under the HOA,
Obviously, for
but
you've seen the paper. I haven't seen it. Does it say that they have a say on the back of my property,
Anything you do in the exterior.
even the back?
But to me, it looks like a tarp, and that's not permitted.
It's cloth,
It is cloth. not
it's
plastic.
8 foot, and it's temporary. That's 3 things that our code does not allow. And that's where the problem really lies.
Okay, so
But that might be an
slowly
alternative.
slowly but surely, we'll get to a medium where it will be working for me. And I've seen many Jewish homes in Woodbury with plastic tarps for their summer, and I'm sure they went for variances. That is what brings
We don't,
that is
no.
what brings
We're
me
only dealing with you this evening.
I know, but that is what brings me here, because Gary told me, go for a variance, get it over with. It turns out that it is a temporary placement. It is like not
But it's not a-
fixed. It's just, it looks like a shower curtain style that it can be pulled away, and then wintertime, I just remove it, which is in 3 or 4 weeks from now, so it is for 9 or 10 weeks of technically 2 months that I'm looking to have that in my property, behind my grasses, which are now tall, but they're giving me that extra 2 feet to obscure, so the female bather.
But you also have it in the front portion. You don't have it just on the side.
We went through that before, because, and I think the board understood, I don't have a front. The front is, what you saw is a side. Somehow when you approach the,
I'm talking about, if you're looking at the house, you have a wrought iron fence.
it starts alongside my house. In other words, if this is my house, my gate goes like this.
Right, but that portion that sticks out has that,
This is the right side of it.
Right.
So there's no front. You're calling it front
Well,
because when you approach from here uphill, you could see it. So this is the right side in the back of my home. When you stand in front of my home, the gate starts right here, finishes right here. And my pool is sunken in. I have a whole row of grasses that grow 6 feet. And because after that we have it's sunken even more, I'm looking to put on a piece of fine like metal wire, these the black whatever that reaches at 8 feet, so that it's 2 feet higher than the outside gates, which is only like.
But there is alternatives to a variance.
Okay.
I mean,
Is
that's
there-
how I'm looking at it.
Kevin, that's for him to figure out the
Yeah,
variances.
but there's alternatives
not Home
that
Depot
does not
business.
require a variance.
Yeah,
Realistically speaking, to place umbrellas that line up my whole wall with umbrellas is almost equal. I mean, does a different color help? Does green help?
The,
They have something that is painted
but
with.
see, the
No.
problem is the umbrellas are legal. They don't require a variance. What you want to do requires a variance, but there's other ways of achieving your goal.
So the only reason you mentioned is because it's like a little bit obscure. It does not fit the neighborhood. The question is if it has, like they have them today printed. You go in Manhattan, they're using it for construction. They have pre-printed ones. It has the same little holes. But you can have-
it wouldn't matter if you had a beautiful cloth hanging there.
No.
It's 8 foot, it's cloth, and it's temporary, so it wouldn't matter at this point.
Umbrellas, you screw it up and it folds up, and then you
Yep.
tip it this way, it would take care of your coverage.
Okay. Since it's
Any-
Mr. Abrams.
I'm just trying to give you, because you're asking for a variance, and if there's an alternative way of achieving your goal without a variance, that's what you really should be doing.
It is not something that is 100%, not that I'm second guessing you, but you're not going to have umbrellas that tip this way and stay that way. And the umbrellas that you buy today are standing upright. You're saying something to create.
Listen, I can tip my umbrella any which way I want it, so there's no reason why you can't do the same
Maybe it's
thing.
Kevin's tipping.
So,
Is there any-
I'll make a comment, since we're in the offering suggestions about.
Okay.
In the Southwest U.S. and desert Arizona, they actually are very popular. They look like sails, okay? They're triangular or square. They can be mounted very low to the ground and then have a pole that takes them up very high. Because those are effectively umbrellas, they would not require a variance. Okay? You have all our point, what Kevin's trying to say, I believe, is the code and the law requires us to determine if there are ways that your objective could be fixed, your objective met, right, and accomplished without a variance. What we're saying, I think, is yes, you have any number of ways. One of the ladies that was here last month suggested burkinis as another example. There are ways for your objectives to be accomplished without a variance. So that's what requires us to say, yes, there are alternatives.
How big can those sails be?
Go
Basically, you go to Google it. Walmart sells them.
No,
Walmart sells them.
I have them custom made.
I'm sure you can.
You probably wouldn't want to, because now you're getting into craziness, I think. But the bottom line is they're probably 20 by 15, something like that. So you bought two of them, hung them together over the side where you have the issue. I'm not a planner. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. But there are alternatives. That's my point.
20 by 15, as many as I want, I can put them up on a
As
pole.
long as they don't go too high, yes.
Oh, okay, so again, that is what, if it's below 6 feet,
I don't know, but again, how high would an umbrella go?
My umbrella's
goes.
got to be 10 feet in the
There
air.
you go.
So the sail can be as high as I want, correct? Because it's not a fence.
I would run it past the association.
I would run it past the association because they need to approve whatever you
But I
do,
think that would,
As does the building department.
as does the building department. That's correct.
but you do have alternatives that don't require a
Is-
variance.
You guys enlightened me today.
Is there anyone else on the board that has anything to say on this before I open it up to the public?
Just quickly, that there's lots of alternatives. I would do a lot of diligence here with the homeowners association, with the building department, and make sure that whatever you're choosing is going to fit the bill. In a way, you know, it still is cloth and so forth, even though it is an umbrella, so technically it is an offense, okay? But I'm just saying, wind can take those flying too on a good windy day in a thunderstorm or something. I'm just saying, do due diligence and really check into it.
Agreed.
Okay?
We can make a decision tonight on after we hear the public, on your application. Then-
Either way, meaning I'm open to the sale idea because it will definitely create conversation. I'm very crafty in this area, making those sales.
And, yes.
Mr. Schwimmer, I wanted the record to be very clear that this board is not enforcing the homeowner association rules and regulations. It is not within their purview to do that. They do not have standing to do it. And it's not one of the issues, it's not a reason for either granting nor denying your application. So I want the record to be clear with respect to that. But what the board is telling you is that they believe there may be reasonable alternatives available to you, and if that be the case, and they're feasible for you to accomplish, that is one of the factors the board considers in granting or denying variances. When they're mentioning the homeowners association and its rules and regulations to you, I think it's a friendly suggestion that anything that you do put outside, make sure that it comports with your rules and regulations. But this board does not have the standing to compel you to do that. It's a private matter between you and the homeowners association.
Okay, I can.
Thank you.
The board is here, and I can definitely consult with them if they're willing to answer my question in person, without, they heard your conversation about those sails, like on a pole sticking out from the floor, reaching high up, and just having something come down, put up as many as I can. And as long as it's like a flag, like, no more fence, I'll put up as many as I can. As long, then most likely I'll find out if they have a say if what type of umbrellas or what type of sails I'm putting up in the back of my yard.
I think you can come up with a reasonable,
I will.
that makes everybody happy.
But again, if you can still come
That's
up
the
with
goal.
with a vote, I'll be,
There will be a vote, yeah. There'll be a vote. But first, we need to hear from the public.
no problem. Highly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the only row who wishes to speak to this application? Is there anyone along the windows who wishes to speak to this application? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Do
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will make a decision at the end of the meeting. You can stay, or you can wait, call the building department in the morning. All right. Now, we have no building inspector's report, so we will now deliberate on the closed public hearings. The first one is Kimberly Cruz.
I don't see I just don't see a problem with the mother-daughter. There's really not a lot of detail in our law about someone that just spends the weekends but if she wants to designate that part of the house for her mother, and she's willing to, you'd have to sign that who's going to be there. I don't see no reason why we just don't. It's already been
Yeah, it's a special
mother-daughter.
permit, it gets checked out every year anyway.
Right.
And maybe in the future she will move in, I don't know.
Right.
Joe?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Joe, would you restate what you said before? It wasn't clear, the point that you were making wasn't clear to me. Could you restate?
All right, basically 31035 says, all right, that a mother-daughter is a special permitted use granted by the ZBA for an additional dwelling unit for the use of family members. Well, obviously it is a family member. So I went to 310.2, and it basically says that a dwelling is a building or that part of a building designed or used as living quarters for one or more families.
Right,
It
but
doesn't say
does-
anything about visiting.
Doesn't say temporary or permanent either. There's no distinction.
It's living quarters for family.
Yeah, living quarters, not
When she's there, she's
a spare
living in.
bedroom.
When she's
what
there,
it-
she's living in.
Those are her living
Well,
quarters
I
when
don't think
she's there.
that's what it was designed for.
Well,
I mean, be that as it may.
It's already
we should-
existing.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I think what you're sorry. What you're speaking about language, vocabulary, specific words in there.
No,
And
yes, okay, language. Yes.
Language, and can I suggest that we ask Rob Rob, do you have an interpretation of that language in the context that Joe is speaking of?
No.
Well, thanks, Rob.
it doesn't specify the number of days you have to live into it. He said no, he couldn't. That's how I look at it. I don't see no reason why we don't grant the special permit for the mother-daughter use.
Did you want to make a motion to that?
I'll
Then
make a
I ask,
motion.
wait a minute, hold on here. I ask for clarification from the code enforcement officer on this matter
And?
as to whether it's for visitation or a permanent residence for that person. It's not like you have to be there every day. Obviously, you can go on vacation and everything else. I mean, we've given mother-daughters in the past where people were still taking vacations and so forth. But it basically is used as your primary residence.
Right, but when she's there, those are her living quarters.
Exactly.
Yes, but is it a residence? I don't believe that that's what a mother is doing. I'd like to have clarification from the code enforcement officer before we make a decision on this. If we have to carry it over a month, that would be my
That's
request.
ridiculous.
Well, that's your opinion.
It's
Madam Chair.
ridiculous.
Well, opinions are like noses. Everybody has one, Kevin.
Our attorney we should go by what our attorney says, not what the code enforcement officer says.
It's done quite often at the planning board that they ask for a clarification from the code enforcement officer. If it's good for the planning board, why shouldn't
I
it
can't
be good
believe
for
we're
the
wasting all the
ZBA?
time on this.
Why?
Because
Don't you want to get it right?
I do have it right.
According to you, yeah. I'm willing to get
Listen, there's
clarification from
no
the code.
days
All right,
listed
all right,
in
right,
there.
guys.
All right, all right.
Hold on. Did you have anything to say? Is still-
I think my
that's still a no?
comments are not relevant any longer. The issue's kind of passed, although Joe is suggesting that you seek an interpretation of this particular code provision. You certainly have the ability to do that. If you think that you need to do it within the context of this application, you could do so. I don't read the word residence in this code provision. It says dwelling. Residence is a legal term. It gets excruciatingly overused sometimes, just like the word domicile does. Sometimes people try to equate those two words. They're not equal. But a dwelling unit is one that's intended for living space and has probably a stove, refrigerator, sink, and a kitchen, a complete kitchen in it. That's your definition of dwelling unit. And I don't see a provision anywhere in your code that requires that the dwelling unit be used full-time or as permanent residence or as domicile. I just don't see those words in there. It's a dwelling unit, a place where a person resides with a fully equipped kitchen.
Duly noted, Counselor. But to me, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm one of the newer guys on the board here. Everything we've ever done, it was for a person who lived there. There's never been anybody that's come before us with something as, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes. Am I incorrect in my statement that everybody has made that their residence?
So far, yes, that's true.
So, I mean, that has been the past practice.
As far as we know. I have one thought about that, Joe. There certainly are people in town who own houses and only spend weekends or part of their time in those houses and spend. That's true, but the point is, in both cases, the consistency is that they're functioning as residents, only part-time residents. In this particular case, it would be as a mother-daughter. In the case of someone who owned two houses, one in New York City and one here, they enjoy the privilege. So I guess I'm just not understanding why a mother-daughter shouldn't enjoy that privilege as well, of part-time residence.
Just for the nature of what it is. I mean, you take part of your house and you convert it to this for the person. You convert it to this. You put in the stove, you put in the sink,
I think,
and so forth.
I'm thinking, I can't get into Ms. Cruz's mind, but I'm thinking that when she purchased the house, she said, oh, this has a little apartment. When my mom comes, she'll have her own space. She can cook, she can sleep, she can watch TV, she could do whatever she wants. I'll get a special permit and then she could do that. And she said that she also had trouble. She can't say
Climbing
anything at the
stairs.
public hearing, or she can?
The applicant can speak.
The applicant. Yes, Ms. Cruz. No, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I totally agree with you, and like I said, she even goes outside and smokes a little cigarettes outside because she just can't, as I said, she can't get upstairs. So she does use the unit downstairs when she is there.
Any other discussion that we want to have before we make a motion?
To do what?
Well, to whatever the motion is.
Are we going to do the code enforcement thing?
I don't think we need to.
Our lawyer just explained it to us.
He said there really is no distinction because of the wording or lack of wording in the code.
I'll make a motion, we grant the special permit.
Do I have a second? I'll second. I'll second it. Joe, how do you vote?
No.
Gary?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Aye. You'll need to go to the building department tomorrow, give them the imam's name and whatever information they need. Okay? Right behind you. Yep. All righty? Okay, now the next one is Mr. Schwimmer. I'm having a problem with this, 1, because it's cloth, 2, because it's temporary, and 3, because it's 8 foot. And to me, he hasn't shown that 8 foot is necessary. He said 6 foot maybe. You know, he went back and forth. When I looked at the questions, he contradicted himself. I mean, I don't see it, but let me hear from you guys.
I think there's alternate.
The objection I have is not so much the 8 foot. If 8 foot were to attempted to be accomplished in a attractive or sensible manner, that would be one thing. But I think this picture is very clear. We're talking about a solid shower curtain. I don't think there's any
Which
other
can
way
be seen from the road.
to sugarcoat.
Yeah.
If everybody in town had a shower curtain for the objective that they were trying to
Well,
accomplish,
it's
which is
temporary.
privacy. If everybody accomplished privacy through a flexible shower curtain, it would clearly affect the characters of the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Let's look at these questions.
Yeah, let's,
Number 1, will the granting of this variance produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or create a detriment to nearby properties? The applicant says no, since this is the back of my property and has no street visibility. I disagree because I drove by and I saw it, and I didn't go onto the property
Yeah,
because
I
he
dis-
wasn't home. I went
I
to.
disagree with that too, yes.
It
does.
can be seen from the road, and the fact that people came and complained about how it looked, it did produce an undesirable change in the neighborhood.
I disagree as well. Same.
Disagree with the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone agree with the applicant that it's not a detriment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number 2. Can the benefit you seek be achieved by some other feasible method other than the variance? The applicant says no. 6-foot fence does not cover onlookers from certain areas. Bathers are still visible. Yet he said there was no street visibility, so I'm not sure how he could say that.
Yes, there is alternatives.
Yes, I agree. And I don't even know if 8 foot, he really didn't explain to me, clarify to me, why 8 foot is so much better. Why not 7 or 6.5?
The reasoning from his point of view is when you come down the hill before his house,
Right,
you can see directly over into the pool.
right. But I
But
drove by.
that's the
just
only
yeah,
section that you can do that, see that.
Yeah, well,
But yeah, I think there's alternative means that are
other feasible.
much more
ways.
attractive to the neighborhood.
I agree. Does anyone,
I agree.
does
with
everyone
that as well.
agree that there are feasible methods?
I believe there's other alternatives. I would disagree with the
With
owner's
the-
statement.
Okay. Number 3, how substantial is the variance you are requesting? He says minimal. We're asking for an additional few feet to increase the fence. Well, really, I mean, if you're just going from 6 to 8, that's nothing. But it's what it's made of and the fact that it's temporary, that's the problem that I'm having.
Yes, that's the problem.
So that's substantial, you know, if I
Yes.
put up an 8-foot shower curtain.
In totality, the whole thing is substantial.
Substantial, right.
Yes.
Everyone agree with that, or?
Yes.
Okay. Number 4, will the granting of the variance have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district? The applicant says there is no physical impact or any environmental concern. I don't know about any environmental concern, probably not, but
There's no physical, there
but-
would be no physical,
It's
it's just an eyesore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
just a
addressed in the first question.
Right.
Right.
Is the alleged difficulty self-created? He said, no, this is a religious requirement, which may very well be. However, by putting up an 8-foot cloth temporary thing, he created the problem by doing that, for whatever reason. So it is.
And I would like to have our attorney draw up a negative
Draft decision?
draft decision on this application.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Just for clarification, the motion would be the direction to council to prepare a decision denying the requested variance pursuant to the findings that the board just made.
Correct.
That would be the,
You said it
that would be the
much
motion.
better. You said it better than I did.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will draw that decision up. Okay.
Did I hear
And we vote on
adjournment?
it next month? Not yet. I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There we go.
Not bad. Look.
Ah,
Yeah, it was actually,